fierce storm rolled in as evening fell. Wind howled through the empty streets, sweeping up brittle leaves and broken branches across the rain-slick pavement. Puddles glimmered with distorted reflections from flickering streetlights, illuminated now and then by flashes of lightning. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth, cold, heavy, and as hollow as the man sitting inside the sleek charcoal-gray car. Ethan Hart, a brilliant CEO, was on his way home after a long, brutal day of high-stakes meetings and relentless decisions. Negotiations had drained him to the bone. His company was balancing on a razor's edge, and he was the one holding it all together. Yet in this moment, Ethan stared blankly out the window, watching the raindrops race down the glass. Inside him, there was only stillness. The car turned onto a narrow road and abruptly came to a stop. Ethan jolted forward in his seat. "What is it?" he asked, his tone edged with irritation. The driver pointed ahead. "Someone's in the road." Ethan squinted through the streaked windshield, and in the downpour he saw her. Soaked from head to toe, clutching a little girl tightly against her chest. She was trembling, her wide eyes filled with both fear and resolve. The child clung to her, cheeks pale from the cold. The driver rolled down the window slightly. "Ma'am, this is dangerous. You need to—" "Please," the woman interrupted, her voice shaking. "Just a ride. Just a few blocks. My daughter's freezing and we have nowhere to go." Ethan didn't respond immediately, his eyes fixed on the woman's trembling arms and how fiercely she held her child. The driver hesitated, but before he could speak another word, the back door opened. "Get in," Ethan said, calm and firm. The car glided silently through the storm-soaked streets. In the back seat, Claire clutched Jasmine tightly, her shoulders trembling with cold and fatigue. Her clothes clung to her body, soaked through, and the little girl nestled into her chest, seeking whatever warmth she could find. "Thank you," Claire whispered, her voice nearly swallowed by the sound of rain. Ethan nodded faintly, his gaze fixed out the window. "Where are you headed?" "Anywhere safe," Claire replied, voice tight with emotion. I don't have a place to go back to." Ethan turned to glance at her. There were faint bruises on her arm where the torn sleeve revealed skin. Her eyes held confusion, weariness, and something else. Resolve. "What's your name?" he asked. "Claire," she said softly, "and this is my daughter, Jasmine." He extended his hand. "I'm Ethan." She shook it gently, her grip weak but sincere. The car slowly turned through tall iron gates and down a long driveway lined with trees. At the end stood a quiet estate, its windows aglow with warm, golden light. The vehicle pulled up beside a small guest house at the back of the property, separate but complete. Ethan opened an umbrella, shielding them from the rain, and led them inside. The space was simple but clean. A loaf of bread and a carton of milk sat on the kitchen counter. Fresh towels were folded in the bathroom, along with a set of sleepwear laid neatly on the bed. "Get some rest," Ethan said. "We'll talk more in the morning." Claire turned to him, emotion flickering in her eyes. "You didn't have to do this." "I know," he replied, then stepped out into the rain. Jasmine buried her face into her mother's neck, and Claire let the tears fall, silently, freely. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt safe. Not completely secure, but like something had shifted. A beginning. Outside, Ethan stood under the edge of the awning, rain soaking into his sleeves. He didn't go inside right away. His eyes stayed fixed on the small house, its soft light glowing behind sheer curtains. There was something in Claire's eyes, not just fear, survival. The next morning, soft sunlight slipped through the guest house window. Claire sat on an old chair, wrapped in a borrowed shawl, gently spoon-feeding Jasmine warm oatmeal. She hummed a lullaby under her breath, barely audible. The space was still, as if every wound had paused just long enough to make room for gentleness. Ethan stood in the doorway for a while before speaking. Claire turned, startled, but his eyes held no judgment, only quiet observation. "Did you sleep at all?" "A little," Claire nodded. "But It was the first sleep I've had in months where I didn't feel afraid. Ethan gave a small nod, then paused. I have a proposal, if you're willing to hear it. Claire looked at him, cautious. This house needs someone to help with day-to-day things. Cooking, laundry, keeping things in order. And you need a safe place. I can offer that. You want me to work here? I want to give you a chance to start again, he replied evenly. Claire hesitated, then nodded slowly. If you really trust me, I'll do my best. Ethan gave a faint smile. I let you into my car. Trust is the easy part. The days that followed moved with quiet rhythm. Claire woke early to help in the kitchen, folding linens, sweeping the floors. Jasmine learned to play quietly in the garden, often drawing shapes in the dirt with a twig beneath the big tree. Ethan appeared rarely, but when he did, he watched from a distance, like a man trying to understand a language he hadn't spoken in years. One afternoon, Ethan arrived home earlier than usual. Passing the library, he saw Claire and Jasmine inside his private study, a space she had never entered before. Claire was dusting the shelves. Jasmine, crouched near a low cabinet, held something wooden in her tiny hands. Look, Mommy, she chirped. A tiny house. Claire turned, her face draining of color. Jasmine, don't touch that. At that moment, Ethan stepped into the room. He froze when he saw the wooden model in Jasmine's hands. His eyes darkened, his face stiffened. Put it down, he said, voice sharp as a blade. Startled, Jasmine dropped the model with a thud. The sound echoed in the room, followed by the child's sudden sobbing. Claire swept her daughter into her arms, her expression torn and alarmed. She didn't mean to, she whispered. She's just a child. Ethan said nothing. He stared at them, unmoving, then turned and walked out without a word. That night, after Jasmine had cried herself to sleep, Claire stood outside the study door. Her fingers hovered over the knob. Then, slowly, she pushed it open. Ethan sat in a leather chair, the lights dim. In his hands was the wooden house, now repaired. He traced the roof with his fingers like it held more than just shape, like it held memory. My parents gave me this when I got into college, he said, his voice rough. They called it a symbol. Build something that lasts, they told me. Claire remained silent. She sat cross-legged beside him on the floor. They died 2 weeks later, car crash. I was supposed to have dinner with him that night, but I canceled. For a meeting. He looked down, hands trembling slightly. I thought there'd be time, but there wasn't. She reached out, resting her hand on his. You're not weak, Ethan, she said softly. You're just human. After a long silence, Ethan finally spoke, his voice rough, as if it carried years he hadn't put into words. I wasn't really angry at Jasmine, he whispered. It wasn't about the object. I was just scared. Scared that something so fragile could break again. And if it did, I'm not sure I'd survive it. Claire looked at him for a long moment, then gently placed her hand over his. That doesn't make you weak, Ethan, she said softly. It makes you real. A man still learning how to feel again. Time passed without confessions, without long embraces. But something between Ethan and Claire had shifted. Their glances lingered longer. Their silences grew more natural. Jasmine began to take Ethan's hand on garden walks, and her laughter echoed through hallways that used to feel cold. Ethan found himself smiling more, not politely, but genuinely. Then, on a quiet Saturday afternoon, as Ethan worked in the library, the intercom buzzed. Sir, there's a man at the gate. He says his family of Miss Claire. The housekeeper's voice trembled. Ethan frowned. Did she mention anyone visiting? No, sir, but he's persistent. Ethan stepped to the security monitor. Through the rain-blurred screen, he saw a disheveled man, unsteady on his feet, eyes sharp with something ugly. Instantly, Ethan felt the wrongness. I'll handle it, he said. But by the time he reached the front door, the man was gone. That night, Claire was unusually quiet. Her hands trembled as she folded towels, and she jumped when Ethan spoke her name. He asked if she was all right. She offered a thin smile. "It's nothing, just tired." He let it go. He shouldn't have. The next morning, Ethan woke early. He expected to find Claire and Jasmine at breakfast like always, but the guest house was empty. Their clothes, gone. Jasmine's storybooks, gone. Her laughter, gone. The kitchen was still. There was no note. His chest tightened. He searched the entire property. Then, on the front steps, tucked beneath a flower pot, he found a folded letter. "Ethan, thank you for the safety, the kindness, the hope you gave me when I had nothing. But my past has returned, and I can't let it destroy the peace you've built. You deserve a family, not a battleground. Please don't look for me. Claire." Ethan's hands clenched around the page. Rage and panic surged like a storm inside him. He rushed inside and summoned his staff. "Get me every piece of camera footage, every angle, every second." The housekeeper spoke up, hesitantly. I saw a man outside the guest house yesterday. He was shouting. Miss Claire told him to leave, but he threatened her." "What did he say?" Ethan demanded. He said, "If you don't pay, I'll take the girl. I'll make sure you never see her again." Ethan froze. Then his voice dropped low, steel beneath each syllable. "I'm going to find him, whatever it takes." Ethan didn't stop. He searched relentlessly, reviewed every security feed, traced cash withdrawals, followed every bus line out of the city. Then, at a rundown gas station in a small town hours away, a tired attendant muttered, "There's a girl working at the diner by the train yard. Came in last week with a little one." Ethan found them in an abandoned building. Claire had laid out a worn blanket beside a small heater, while Jasmine slept soundly, her cheeks smudged with dust and warmth missing from the air. When Claire stepped outside to face him in the freezing rain, she said only one thing: "You shouldn't have come here." "You shouldn't be here either," Ethan replied. They argued, torn between pain and protection. Claire believed she had left to keep him safe. Ethan believed she had left him behind. But beneath the downpour and between the tears, Claire collapsed against him. "I don't know how to stop running," she sobbed. Ethan held her close. "Then let me hold you still." 2 weeks later, with surveillance footage, the housekeeper's testimony, and threatening messages, Claire's ex-husband was arrested. For the first time in years, Claire exhaled without fear. When they returned to the estate, Ethan didn't bring them to the guest house. He waited at the front steps, arms open. Jasmine ran to him without hesitation. Claire followed slowly, clutching her bag like it might all vanish. But nothing vanished. Everything became real. The east wing had been redone. Fresh paint, soft rugs, a small room for Jasmine with a window seat overlooking the garden. The back porch, now lined with Claire's favorite flowers, smelled once again of cinnamon and carried the sound of laughter. For the first time in years, the three of them weren't each on their own. They were us. One soft golden afternoon, Ethan asked Claire to take a walk by the lake, the same place where he had once sat alone, holding grief in silence. But this time, he wasn't alone. Jasmine ran ahead of them, a toy sailboat in hand, tossing small stones into the water with bursts of laughter. Ethan and Claire followed slowly, hand in hand, stepping beneath trees that filtered light like lace. Claire smiled gently. "I get the feeling you didn't bring me here just for the fresh air." Ethan didn't answer right away. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Claire stopped, the wind quieting around them. He opened it. Inside, a simple gold band lined with tiny, delicate diamonds. Not extravagant, just elegant, just her. "I've had everything," Ethan began, his voice steady. "Money, power, beautiful homes, but none of it ever felt like it belonged to me. Not until you and Jasmine walked into my life." Claire raised her hand to her mouth, tears already slipping free. "I don't just want to protect you," he continued. "I want to grow old with you. I want to build a family, not out of duty, but out of love. The kind my parents dreamed of, the kind I never thought I'd find." He got down on one knee. "Claire, will you marry me?" She nodded, overwhelmed, her fingers trembling as she touched his face. "I never believed I deserved happiness," she whispered. "But you made me believe I might." From down the path, Jasmine shouted, "Did Mommy say yes?" Claire laughed through her tears, calling back, "She did!" The wedding took place in the quiet garden behind the house, where lanterns swayed like slow breaths among the trees, and the blooms opened wide as if to witness something sacred. It was simple, intimate. A few close friends, trusted staff, and Jasmine in a tiny white dress holding a wildflower bouquet. Their vows were not traditional. They were written from sleepless nights, shared scars, and newfound dreams. Ethan whispered, "I promise to be your safe place. Through storms, through ordinary mornings." Claire replied, "I promise not to run again, to walk with you, to believe even when it's hard." And Jasmine, clutching a card she wrote herself, read aloud. "Mom used to cry in the dark. Now she laughs when she bakes. Mr. Ethan makes her happy, and she makes banana bread for him. I think that's love." 3 years later, the house still brimmed with sunlight, laughter, and the scent of warm pastries. But now, every so often, the sharp cry of a newborn rang out from the kitchen, like a new note added to the melody of joy they had written together. Claire and Ethan had a son. His name was Leo. He had Ethan's calm gray eyes and Claire's sweet dimpled smile. From the moment he arrived, Ethan rarely let the boy out of his sight. He was still the steady, devoted husband who loved his wife with quiet glances. But with Leo in his arms, Ethan became the gentlest man alive. Jasmine, now 8, had grown into a clever, tender soul, part guardian, part playmate, who loved her little brother with the fierce gentleness only a once lonely child could give. She carried Leo, told him stories, sang lullabies, and even tried teaching him his first words. She called him her little bread roll because he's always warm and soft like fresh-baked buns. Their family wasn't perfect. There were sleepless nights, messy kitchens, and busy days. But love was never in short supply. It was present in every touch, every shared glance. Ethan had once lost everything. Claire had once run from everyone. Now, neither of them ran anymore. They had stopped, here, in a home with flowers on the porch, children's laughter in the air, and cinnamon in the oven. And here, love wasn't something to be found. It was something they had chosen, again and again, every single day.